Yeah, okay.
Alrighty, we'll move on to the second team in this division. Just 1 point behind the Dallas Stars. Chad, you mentioned that we were very critical of the Winnipeg Jets after they didn't really change much in the offseason, but they got a new coach in Rick Bowness, and I think that he has done wonders for these guys. So Winnipeg in second in this division, 63 points in 48 games, a point behind the Stars for first in the Central. Like I mentioned, they won 2 in a row, 7-3 in their last 10. Case, your grade for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, this is another team that I was pretty sheepish on before the beginning of this season, but they've definitely proven me wrong here, and I'm going to give them an A- because I could find some negatives about this team. Very impressed with where they are in the standings, but I don't know if it's sustainable. I think that they're a playoff team, but it's not going to be second place in this division by the end of the year. For positives, I've got to point out Josh Morrissey having an absolute career year, Norris caliber defenseman, and has been phenomenal. And the core is continuing to get it done. Last year, if you had any of these guys in fantasy, it was an absolute shit show. They were so streaky, and it was tough to watch. And that includes guys. That's Kyle Connor, that's Scheifele, that's Dubois, that's I'll even include Blake Wheeler and Lowry as well. But all of those guys are producing for them so far this season. And I mean, goaltending, you got to include that guy in their core because he's been their best player once again, and that's Hellebuck. This team's fifth, I believe, in save percentage in the league, and that's a pretty easy metric to look at when you think about Connor Hellebuck. The negatives I could point out is that they have a terribly average power play, and you don't do well in the playoffs if you have a poor power play. And the last thing is they sort of lack depth. I named a pretty big core, but outside of that core, there is not really anyone producing on this team, and you can see that in where they stand for goals for.
Yeah, outside of their top six, the production drops off drastically. And I mean, we all kind of knew that going into the season, that their top six was pretty good on paper. It has been for years now, even dating back to when Patrick Laine was there, and now with PLD. Like, their top six is solid when everybody's going, but outside of their top six, there's really not a lot there. And, as you said, the goals for kind of show that. But you know what, Case? Like, I'm agreeing with you. I'm giving them an A- as well. I think that's a perfect grade because, like I said, at the start of the year, we were pretty low on the team, and we projected them to finish, or at least be a bubble team, maybe finish just outside of the playoffs or squeak in. On paper, they've always been good, but we're seeing it again this year. They've been really reliant on Connor Hellebuck, and they kind of ebb and flow with his play. And surprise, surprise, he's having another Vezina caliber season this year. So naturally, the team is good again. And I'm not saying it's all on Connor Hellebuck's shoulders. Like you did mention, there are 4 guys, I believe, who are scoring over a point per game. And that doesn't even include Wheeler and Scheifele, who are right behind. So they are getting the production from their top 6, and they are getting really good goaltending. But, it is a bit scary when you look at this team, because I think they are so reliant on Connor Hellebuck to steal games. And I don't know if that's as sustainable as, a team who's maybe just better structured top to bottom. But that being said, Hellebuck's having a great year. They're getting production. They're currently in a good spot right now when it comes to the playoff picture. And, I was just looking at some of the numbers, and they're pretty encouraging for this team as well so far through just under 50 games. Like, despite not getting much production outside of the top 6, they are still top 10 in goals for, and as well as goals against, meaning like they've allowed within the top 10 fewest goals against in the league. And despite having a pretty average power play, which I think, given the weapons in this lineup, might come down to coaching, they have the second best penalty kill percentage in the NHL. So that's not nothing. So a lot of things going right for the Winnipeg Jets right now, and they just better hope that guys stay healthy and their top players keep playing like top players. But yeah, so far so good, and that's why I give them an A-.
Yeah, this is a clean sweep here for us, boys. I'm going to give them an A- as well. I just think that some nights they just get right back into, having Hellebuyck having to stand on his head and kind of bail them out. There was a game a couple of weeks ago in Buffalo, and the Sabres were all over them, just throwing a ton of shots at Hellebuyck, and he was just standing on his head in that one. And Winnipeg was actually looking pretty sloppy and a little slow in that game. So I do think they get caught up in that. I am a little surprised about the comments about the lack of depth scoring. I think they have good players in their bottom six, but just there should be more offense there. Like Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, for example, was a really good waiver claim for this team. Not exactly sure where Cole Perfetti is in the lineup, but he's knocking on the door for the scoring lead in all out of all rookies in the NHL this season. So he's really getting close to giving Matty Beniers a run there. And Adam Lowry, another good player on this team. He's their third line center who is having a career season. So I do think there's a little bit more depth there, and we could see some more offense from a few guys, but look, it's a surprise for sure. I think we thought that this team would make some big changes in the offseason, and Cheveldayoff decided to stick with the same group, which, again, was just so surprising after the way last year went. And this team just needed their goaltender to get back to his old self, and he certainly has. Kyle Connor is back to his old self. Pierre-Luc Dubois has really become a star on this team and in the National Hockey League. So things are going right for sure. Case, I think you make a good point. I don't see them finishing second in this division. I mean, you look at Colorado, the way they're going right now, and we're going to talk about them, of course. They could slide up right in there in that second spot. So, but yeah, got to give the Jets an A-. Pretty good given what we thought they were going to be heading into the season.
I will say, while we're on the Jets here, quick, that I went to the game the other night, Toronto and Winnipeg in Toronto, and I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest. It was, I believe it was a 4-1 win over Winnipeg. I'd have to double check. I think it was 4-1. And I thought that game would be perfect to go to in person. Just got some cheap tickets last minute because I thought there was going to be some bad blood there. I thought it was going to be a chippy game. But you know what? Between those two teams on that night, it was pretty tame, and I was a little disappointed. I thought Winnipeg had a little more fight and a little more hatred towards Toronto. I thought it would be a better game, but
it's because the Leafs don't have any sandpaper. They need to add sandpaper at the deadline.
Yeah, 4 more Michael Buntings, please. That would be great.